There was still a strange stillness in the air, as if time itself hesitated before something tragic was about to happen. The land around the Jordan Valley was lush and abundant. Rivers cut through the hills like veins full of life. Fruit trees glistened under the sun like promises of plenty. It was the kind of place any man would choose to prosper. That's why Lot chose to live there. Sodom and Gomorrah looked like paradise, but beneath the beauty of the land, there was a silent rot. The cities never slept. The streets were filled with parties, screams, forced laughter, and practices that consumed the soul. Men bought and sold bodies as if they were bread. Strange sacrifices were made on hidden altars. The name of God was either unknown or mocked. There was no justice, no mercy. The strong crushed the weak. The rich fed their vices while the poor rotted on the edges of the city. But all of this felt normal to those who lived there. Sin had stopped being the exception and had become the culture. Meanwhile, far from the voices of the crowd, a man spoke with God, Abraham. He didn't have enormous houses or thousands of servants, but he had something few men in that time possessed: intimacy with the Most High. On a quiet night, God shared something terrible with him. Sodom and Gomorrah would be destroyed. Abraham fell to his knees, not out of fear, but compassion. His nephew Lot lived there. And even if he didn't, Abraham would still beg for mercy. He dared to negotiate with God. If there were 50 righteous, what about 40, 30, 20, even 10? God said he would spare the cities for just 10 righteous people, but there weren't 10. That same night, 2 angels crossed the gates of Sodom. Ordinary men wouldn't notice their true nature, but something in their presence awakened both fear and desire. Lot saw them and, recognizing their importance, ran to welcome them. He pleaded with them to come into his home. They hesitated. They preferred to spend the night in the streets, but Lot insisted. He knew what happened there after the sun went down. Not long after, a mob surrounded his house. Men of all ages, from alleys and palaces, demanded to see the visitors. They wanted to use them, violate them, just like they did with anything new that appeared in that filthy city. In desperation, Lot even offered his daughters to protect the angels. But the men weren't interested in limits or innocence. They wanted to corrupt what was holy. Then the angels revealed who they were. A blinding light struck the wicked. Doors were shut with supernatural force, and final words were spoken. The city will be destroyed. That night, while the city was still drunk on its own sin, the heavens began to move. The hands of God, invisible to human eyes, were preparing. The angels told Lot, "Take your wife, take your daughters, leave. Do not look back." But Lot's wife's heart was still tied to the city. Maybe it was the friendships, the luxuries, the parties. Maybe it was fear of losing what she had built. But the fact is that when she heard the sound of destruction behind her, she looked back. And in that moment, she turned into a pillar of salt frozen in time, an eternal monument to disobedience. What fell upon Sodom and Gomorrah was no ordinary fire. Ancient accounts beyond the Bible, like the Book of Enoch and even Sumerian records, speak of a divine punishment that seemed to come from the sky itself. Smoke, flames, a roar that split the stones. The earth trembled. Houses collapsed. Bodies were burned before they even hit the ground. Papyrus 115, an ancient manuscript discovered in Egypt, describes something similar to explosions resembling a divine eruption, as if a second sun had risen to consume everything. And modern archaeologists have found layers of ash and pure sulfur in the area believed to be ancient Sodom. Stones with bubbles of extreme heat, as if they had been cooked by impossible temperatures. The soil was marked. Nothing grew there for centuries, and travelers who passed by told stories of screams the wind still carried at night. What's most frightening is that Sodom wasn't destroyed solely because of violence, nor because of promiscuity, though both were present. The Bible and extra-biblical sources speak of pride, selfishness, contempt for the poor, and arrogance before God. It wasn't just what they did, it was what they had become. They didn't commit evil out of weakness. They celebrated it. And even in the face of all this, God looked for the righteous. He searched for someone, but there was no one willing to swim against the current. No one who raised their voice. Everyone gave in. Everyone got comfortable. Today, thousands of years later, the echo of that story still reaches us. Because Sodom and Gomorrah are not just two ancient cities, they are symbols. They represent the point at which a culture drifts so far from the light that it no longer recognizes the darkness. How many times do people see evil but stay silent to avoid losing followers? How often is the truth hidden to avoid sounding extreme? The modern world, with all its technology, still wrestles with the same dilemmas. Pride, greed, perversion disguised as freedom. And it all starts small. A little compromise here, a silence there, until no one realizes they're walking in the dark. But the same God who destroyed those cities also reached out to save them. He listened to Abraham. He sent angels. He waited. He gave chances. And even today, he still waits. He watches. He searches for the righteous, not for the perfect, but for hearts that still care, that still break, that still weep for others. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is a warning, but it's also an invitation to choose a different path, to not look back when God calls you to move forward, to not hesitate before the truth, to not cling to what is already condemned. Because when the sky closes and the fire falls, there is no more time to negotiate. You might think this story is ancient, buried in time, but the truth is, Sodom and Gomorrah still live, not as cities, but as choices. They breathe in the moments when you close your eyes to injustice, when you tolerate what you know is destructive, or when you keep looking back even after the warning has been given. What destroyed those cities wasn't just sin, it was the refusal to stop even after being warned. And now the question remains, will you live like Lot, walking out of destruction even when you don't fully understand? Will you be like his wife, unable to leave the past behind? Or will you be like Abraham, interceding, believing, even when everything seems lost? If this story spoke to you in any way, type "I choose not to look back" in the comments. Because sometimes writing that down is more than just a gesture. It's a commitment. And maybe, just maybe, this is your chance to walk out of your own Sodom before the fire begins to fall.